Hello everybody, my name is Laura and this is my video on how I make polymer clay roses. These are two different styles and I will show you the difference between them. Okay, here's what you're going to need to get going. You need clay, you're going to need a ball roller, a tissue knife, a rubber mat, floral wire, tin foil, molds for cutting out flower shapes, cookie cutters, and then this is a texture mold of a rose. Let's see here, I think that's, we're also going to do one of those methods. We're going to need a paintbrush and some artist pastels. Also, our handy dandy pasta roller. It's a lot harder to do this without it. It's possible, but I really prefer to use it. Okay, so we'll set this stuff to the side. I made a video that talks about all these different parts and like where I got them and what works well, so feel free to watch that one. Okay, so starting off with the clay. This is a lot of fun because you get to mix colors just like you're mixing paint, and they're very, very vibrant colors, except for the leather ones. Okay, so these are different types: Fimo Soft, Primo, Sculpey, and then Fimo Leather. All of them have their ups and downs. Some are stronger than others, some are weaker. My biggest thing is how bendy are they, and this one is really bendy. Let me see here. This is a little doodad I made of lots of different colors of it, and it's super bendy. I mean, I could go to town here. It's bendy. So, because this one, you think, oh, just always use leather clay. No, because it doesn't mix very well. So, what I like to do is I like to mix the best parts of all of them. So today I'm going to show you how to make a rose just like I showed you. It is kind of a mandarin orange color. No, marigold orange color. So to do the clay, you take your tissue knife and you just chop off a little bit of block. It's kind of hard. And then I like to add some of this leather because it does give a bendy feature. They tend to be more flexible when I add some kind of the leather. And then we'll add a little bit of orange to make it a little bit darker. Now that I've got those off, I can just put my clays to the side. So now you've got your different colors, and from experience I know this kind of makes the color I'm looking for. Now you gotta squish it and play with it like you're playing with Play-Doh. This is for two different reasons. Well, a few different reasons. One, you gotta take out your aggression on clay, which is much better than other things. And two, you're conditioning your clay. You are warming it up so it's usable. If you took clay straight from the thing and put it straight from the box and put it right in your roller, you would quickly have clay with a lot of cracks. The clay needs to be conditioned, it needs to be warmed up, and it's just a lot better to use. Now, in here you can see all the different colors kind of mixing together. Once it's nice and warm in your hands and they're kind of mixed together, you can bring out your pasta roller. I have set it to the #1 setting. So I'll put it in here and I'll crank away. Already the colors are starting to mix together. So I just fold it in on itself, keep it on that #1 setting, and keep twisting away. Fold it in on itself, twist away. Over time, the colors really blend together to make the color I'm looking for. Now while you're doing this, while you're making a flower, you can choose to keep, like there's this big orange space in there. You may really like that. You may like the marbling kind of effect of it. So you can stop right now and not completely mix your colors. For experience, by what works for me, it works better to have a uniform color so I can have the same thing throughout the flower, but definitely there's some fun with marbling as well. Now even as I'm jibber-jabbering on, the colors are almost completely mixed. All right, looking good. Yeah, maybe a few little hues, but still looking really good. Now that I have it the color I want it to be, now I dial my pasta roller to #2, roll it through again. And then just work your way up the dial, rolling it through. If you went from 1 all the way to 9, then you would get a bunch of cracks in your clay. Let's not do that. So slowly but surely, you crank it through. And all the way up to I do go all the way up to 9. And yeah, you'll say like, hey, you skipped a few spots. Yeah, I did. As long as you do it gradually, you can skip a few numbers. Now, that little piece of clay is now this nice, very thin piece of polymer clay. Now it's cookie cutter time. So now we get to use our cookie cutters. These cookie cutters I got at a set on Amazon, and these are for the rose petals, and these are different sizes it comes in. I usually do 4 or 5 of just these 3. If I'm making a really big rose, that's when I get to the bigger ones. So you just do it like you do cookies. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll do this one. 1, 2. Simple, easy, just like cutting out cookies, like Mom always had us do every Christmas. That is, if we didn't steal all the dough beforehand. It was good dough. Okay, so now we got all of our little shapes cut out, and then we just go whoop, and away they go. Away goes our excess. Keep this around and keep some of it kind of flat. You will use it again. So now we got our little petals. Now I'll tell you what you do with each petal. What you do is you take a petal. I'll take the biggest one, so hopefully it's easier to see, and you put it on foam board. All of these methods that I've been doing are all adaptations of making gum paste flowers like you do for wedding cakes, and if like this was as fondant, but I wanted to make something more permanent, so these are methods to make gum paste. So I take my foam roller, my ball roller, it's heavy metal, and this is just a foam pad, and gently push it down around the edges. What I'm doing is I'm flattening and thinning out those edges. This was the one that's been thinned, and this is the one that hasn't. Hopefully you can see it. It really makes a difference, especially when you go to the next step of molding it. Now you get to mold it. You take your rose mold, set it in there, close her up, and just squeeze. And out comes some beautiful texture to make a rose. And then as you peel it off, I always feel it gets even more of a rose kind of feel by how the petal peels. Now, if you wanted to make a rose that was all one color like this, I wouldn't do this next step, but I want to show you the difference. This is going to be making it like the tips of it are a different color. Hopefully you can see it also on this flower. It's like cream base and then pinkish tips. Here's a trick to do this. You take your artist pastel chalks. These are student grade, nothing fancy. And you open them up, and what you can do is with your leftover clay from when you were cutting, you can take your brush and you can experiment and kind of like, that's a nice shade, or whoa, that's a mistake. That's way too dark or too light. It's a perfect way to try out what color you want it to be for your tips. Now with this color clay, hopefully I didn't get that too dirty. With this color clay, I know for experience that this red works really well. So now my little board here, I flip it over. I put a paper towel in here just so there wouldn't be chalk all over my foam board. And now you take, rub it, scrub it into the color you're using, and just dab around the edges. It's pretty simple. Actually, all the steps to making these flowers are pretty simple. It's just a matter of combining them. This is what has worked for me. If something works better for you, or you experiment and find something that works better, let me know. I'm always open for some suggestions. Okay. Then you flip it over. Make sure to do it on both sides. Now this may sound ridiculous, but you may even want to check to make sure you have it on a little tiny thickness on the rim, because a flower would grow out and would have, it'd be solid color through there. So here is my first little petal, and it's ready to be molded into a rose. It's been cut out, it's been molded, and now it has its little bit of chalk on it. When you're using this chalk, This is being chalked before it was baked. If you do chalk post-bake, like this guy, if I took it and I added just some coloring to the edges, make it a little more shading, then it's really important to seal it with something. Otherwise, this is just chalk on plastic. It'll wipe off. So on this guy, it's kind of hard. Pick which has been sealed. That's right, it's a really, really glossy one. They make different forms of sealant. I'm going to experiment with a satin one because this is just a little too glossy for me for a flower. This is the sealant that I used. It is made by Sculpey. I've heard different things of to not use nail polish or Mod Podge or anything else because over time they can turn yellow and crack on your piece, and you don't want that. So I would seal this one if I did it after it had been baked, and then this guy, even after it's all molded and everything, and after it's been baked, I probably will seal it too, just to make sure none of that chalk comes off. It so far hasn't come off on me, but just to be safe. Okay, now we get to turn all of these into this. We can do that step over and over and over again. And now, just like the shows when I was a little kid, and magically it would be done. Ta-da! Here are all of the petals over and over and over again. All of them have been molded, all of them have had chalk around their edges, and all of them had the ball roller to make their edges thinner. So, let's start to assemble this sucker. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my leftover clay. Excuse me. I've got a floral wire. This floral wire is covered in kind of a fabric-y, and I find that it just works better for me than just a slick wire. Take some tin foil. I'm going to take a drink. And what I'm going to do, first I'm going to take my little wire and I'm going to give it kind of a shepherd's hook look on the end. And then I'm just going to mold it around. Nothing super fancy at all. You're going for an elongated teardrop shape. When working with polymer clay, you can use tin foil for anything that wouldn't be seen, as I understand it. So like this flower, the big solid base of it could be made out of foil because it's not seen. Now this one I think I did make it layer after layer of clay. But in order to save clay and also to make your piece lighter, you use foil. All of these things I'm doing is based on my experience. If it's like, no, Laura, that's the worst way to do it, let me know. And I may be making big mistakes, but that's okay. That's how I learn. Now I've got a nice elongated shape made out of tin foil. What I want to do is I want to cover that with my leftover clay. I can just squeeze it out with my hands, or you can roll it out, whichever you feel like. But you're just going to cover your tin foil now. This is doing a few things. One, it's covering the tin foil so no one knows the secret of what the majority of your flower is made of. Pardon me. And two, this clay is a great thing. Polymer clay sticks well to polymer clay in my experience. So, you can squish it and squeeze it. If I did this with like my first petal and squished it around, then like all my edges would get messed up and it wouldn't look as nice. So just use your leftover clay to cover it first. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my littlest petal and I'm going to take my tissue knife and I'm just going to cut off the bottom part of it. This is going to be the very tip of the rose. So it's going to go up here. So it doesn't need a lot on it. So here's my little guy, my tippy tip of my rose. And you're just going to very gently roll it around, make a little spiral. There she is, a little spiral. And then it gets kind of mounted on the top there. Now you just get to keep layering around and around. Wherever this fold is, wherever that meets up, that's where I put my next petal. And I just squeeze. Towards the bottom is where I didn't put any chalk, so I squeeze that in. Sorry. So I just squeeze that on. And then here's another space in between. Just go round and around and around. Now while you're doing this, you can take your tool, you can take a paintbrush, and you can just gently move these petals where you want them to go. And actually, here, let's push you in a little bit. We're seeing the base thing a little bit too much. There we go. Fan these out a little bit. Use that tool. Okay, let's keep going around and around. I try to keep all the petals on the same level. They don't start moving down or anything like that. I like to, whenever I see roses, and I like to observe them and think about what little things I could do to make my little sculptures be more realistic. Okay, round and round we go. Now at this point, if you're making this and you're like, oh darn, I'm out of petals, I wish I made more. Well, let's take your leftover clay and repeat the steps. This is an oil-based clay that has to be baked to be hardened, so this can sit out for hours. All of my clay I don't really seal up at all, and it's totally fine next time I want to use it. Can you? And with each one, I'm just pushing it down at the bottom. Now, as I'm starting to do my last ones, my last big ones, I want to be conscious of where they're going, especially towards the bottom, to see if it's really going to cover up that original part. I actually just took a little bit of clay off the end here because it wouldn't cover it. So, when it looks like I missed one. Take a little clay. At any point you can go in and add more chalk. For roses especially, I like to do them individually so I can really get just the edges. So here we're going around and around. To make our little rose. Hopefully you think this is pretty easy, because once you know the steps, it is. And now at the base of it, I'm just going to kind of smooth it down so everything sticks together. And so it looks like it's a uniform rose. Now I'm going to just gently with my brush peel back a little bit, because sometimes they get kind of close together while you're putting it together. I like to use a brush because it's so gentle. These petals are pretty fragile and they can lose their shape pretty easily, so a little brush is nice. So here is my completed rose. If you wanted to, you could take some green clay and you could roll kind of a little oblong shape. And sometimes I just put this at the bottom just to kind of cover up that bottom a little bit. I'll do this 4 times or so, and I'll show you what the point is. I could also take my time more and take this green, roll it out properly, add leaf texture to it as well. If you're going for like a bouquet where they're all going to be put together, people wouldn't see that detail as much. If it's a single flower somewhere, someone would, so you would want to take that time. So here is just the base of the rose. So it kind of continues the illusion of that it's a flower. Now, we're ready to go. We've got this sucker ready to go. It is ready to bake. This is a weird trick I figured out. What I do is I take a fork and I put the flower in like this. The fork is facing down. The flower is going up. And then I wrap the stem around the handle. Easily then I can just go whoop, and this will sit in the pan like that, so that the flower is not touching anything and it will be able to bake properly. Now I get my handy dandy metal trays, put it right in there. I really like to use a muffin tin, an old muffin tin, and put it in there. just because then I can make sure it's where it needs to be. Now in this I would put a bunch of other flowers that I had about ready to go for baking. And then as soon as I had it filled up, I put its lid on. I'll take a couple binder clips and clip it shut. This is because you have to bake the clay in order for it to get hard. And once you bake it, suckers are nice and hard and great. But you can either bake it in your normal oven or you can bake it in a toaster oven. Now for me, my flowers were getting too tall to fit in a toaster oven. So I kind of created this way. These are just little aluminum foil things from the Dollar Tree. And then I clip them shut with metal binder clips. And then I put this into my normal at-home oven. This way, when the clay is baking, it sometimes has a plasticky odor and it has some kind of residue that comes off of it. And I'd rather that not be in my baking. So I kind of seal it up in here. I put it all into the oven like this, bake it, bring it out, and then I will take it outside or to the garage, open it up, let those lovely fumes go away, and then be able to use my clay. It takes probably about half an hour or so for it to really cool down. You want to make till it's completely cool before you do any kind of sealant. So that's how I make my little roses. I hopefully will put links on the different molds that I've gotten. Hopefully I'll put it on Amazon. I say that on YouTube. I'm saying that because I've never done this before, so who knows. If you guys want, I will show you how I do the iris next using this wonderful mold. And the iris is this lovely blue flower. Till then, have fun.